Okay, we'll give a couple minutes for Jeff. Maybe 2 more minutes. So we
Welcome,
had-
everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. We're just waiting for one more of our presenters to join us.
Yes, I think that was the question, whether or not the audio worked. And Sherry, please hang on. We're almost there.
Steph, do we want to get started and we can have Jeff join us and give an update when he's able to get on?
Yes, I can jump in and take that first slide of his.
Okay. So that's what we're doing. We're going to start right now. I hope we can all hear and see everything that's happening here. So me, Nathaniel Waimakana, good morning, my relatives. Welcome to our producer information meeting. This is very exciting what we're doing here today. And we thank you for joining this meeting. It is being recorded, so if there are parts that you missed or want to review, we will have this available for you. Or if you know others that ask and want to participate, then we can also have that happen. You're going to see a series of slides in this PowerPoint that our team will be reviewing and speaking to. One of the things, and let me start with just how this Tribal Elder Box food program actually started. During the pandemic, during the start of the pandemic, remember all the chaos that had happened, and the schools, the restaurants closed, and there was food spoiling in the fields. There was milk being disposed of. We saw a lot of things happening, and gratefully, the DATCP and USDA had looked at trying to be that connect to be able to get food from, so it didn't spoil, and supporting the farmers and the producers to get that food to the individuals then that need it, that no longer were at schools. So we know that story. We had those boxes then, and a lot of that came to our food distribution departments on our tribal reservations, as well as to many of the other TFAP and other places that had that capacity to distribute. Well, one of the things that we found at our tribal level was, well, we really appreciated having all those boxes and that additional food. We found that particular to our elders, many of them really couldn't consume much of that food that was in the boxes. We found that we already knew many of our elders were diabetic, they were lactose intolerant, they were obese, they had hypertension. I mean, the list can go on, and it's not just native elders that have this, but that was our situation here. And as we looked toward, with our team here, you're going to be hearing from, one of our discussions was we really would like to be able to source the types of foods under that lens of food as medicine to help our elders. So in working with Feeding Wisconsin, it just so happened that Stephanie Dorfman, who was on the call with us when we were discussing how can we look at other types of sourcing other types of foods, how can that be possible, how can that be funded to pilot something like this? A grant through Feeding America come through that we then jumped on, and that's what you're going to hear about here. And that looked at taking local control of the types of foods that we wanted to purchase. And within that, this follows along the same veins that our tribe and many other tribes now are looking at doing. And some of the intent through this, and we saw this helping, was we had three bigger goals. Our intent was to grow our tribal economies. So we tried purchasing from tribal vendors or from tribal producers. And one of the things we found out for sure was that there was not enough food to be able to source. So that we found out that bright and clear. We wanted to build relationships to strengthen the local and regional food systems. So we wanted to grow that, and we hear now through much of the funding all over the place that resilience comes from increasing and growing and strengthening your local food systems. So this fell in line with what we were trying to do. And of course, we wanted to support procurement of traditional, healthy, nutritious foods our elders recognize and will eat. So with that, we're going to go over several things. One is we're going to show you how that program went through last year. Then we will also talk about the exciting ability now to increase with the funding, increase the work with other tribes. So this is all very exciting for us. I think I can stop talking now and let you know very much so. If we go through the presentation, we'll try to be quick. If you have questions, by all means, we'll try to respond as much as we can. And you may want to, if you can, hold them till later, and then we'll try to get to them. So thank you. So let's move on. Stephanie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Dorfman, Executive Director of Feeding Wisconsin. I will jump in and share just a bit more about how the process for the program has worked. And this slide here, I'm not sure where the blue line is coming from. I apologize for that. So last year, as Gary mentioned, was our pilot program. So in 2021, our program operated in this way, and I'll walk through that pretty quickly here. We imagine that 2022 season will look similar, but we will talk through how we hope to expand the program and how the logistics might look a little different to come. So as you can see here, local food is purchased. So a couple of our partners on this call, Jeff Jocelyn from Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin was doing a lot of the centralizing of purchasing. So he was working with both Indigenous and non-Indigenous producers, as well as aggregators, to source seasonal produce and proteins, all with the interest of really sourcing product that was inspired by the values, as Gary mentioned, for the creation of this program. So leaning into practices of sustainable, regenerative and or organic stewardship. So we don't require certification in any of those labels, but we are looking for a product that does not use pesticides or sprays and food that really does embody some of the nutritious and traditional values that we're hoping to put into these boxes for tribal elders. So producers and supply chain partners then deliver the products that we purchase to be repacked by volunteers for distribution. Last year, we used the Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative in Wapaka to centralize that repack. We're looking to see if we can make that happen again, or if we might need to decentralize some of the repacking and have a couple drop points across the state. Repacked and household portion boxes were then delivered to 3 different tribal nations at the start of the program. By the end of the program, we had expanded it to 7 different tribal nations. Those boxes then went out for free to our tribal elders in those communities. So like I mentioned, tribal elders receive a free box of, at that point, perishable food items sourced from both Indigenous and local producers. Those boxes were distributed at a major distribution point of those tribal nations, and also some home delivery was done. Okay, I'll hand it over to Jen.
Sukwalik, everyone. My name is Jen Falk, and I am an Oneida tribal member, and I work for the Menominee Tribes Department of Ag with Gary. So I'm just going to run through how last year went. We were funded for $427,000 from Feeding America with grant dollars. We primarily provided boxes to 3 tribes, Oneida, Menominee, and Red Cliff, but we also were able to, on a few occasions, distribute to other tribes. So we did, 7 different tribes did receive boxes in all. Every 2 weeks, 900 boxes went out between, for the length duration of the project, a total of 10,800 boxes went out last year. There were 12 distributions. We worked with one of the, and you'll hear this theme throughout this project, one of the greatest things about this has been the partnerships that have been built in this project. You'll see a lot of us from a lot of different agencies working on this. But we work together to make decisions around purchasing, aggregating, repacking, all of those details that a lot of us didn't know anything about. So it's been a great learning experience as well. So of the $427,800 that we spent last year, that we were funded, I think 85% of that was spent on food. And I think 41% of that was spent on purchasing food from Indigenous producers. And if you need more information, you can go to this link. Is this the video? Is this what that link is?
That link is to the main page, and there are a couple videos linked to that page.
Okay.
So good morning, everyone. This is Jeff Joslin from Feeding America East Wisconsin. I apologize for my technical difficulties on the front end. So I took the lead on doing much of the procurement for this program. And we ended up doing nearly 200,000 pounds of produce in total, which is pretty fantastic. We had a real focus on seasonal local products. Lots of onions and potatoes, squash, tomatoes, strawberries, blueberries, the list goes on. Every week we would go through and just choose items that were hopefully a good variety, something that generally we hadn't done in a prior week, or maybe it was a little bit of a different variety of something if it was something that was repeating. Proteins, we did 21,000 pounds of proteins, and this ran the from beef, fish, and buffalo. We had lots of pork that we did on a regular basis, elk, chicken, and eggs. So we really were able to give quite a great variety of product given some of the constraints that we had, which for this project was really that it was fresh and perishable products only, nothing that was processed or already had any work done to it. So we were able to do something that was really kind of special with the sourcing.
So looking at the coming season, 2022, we do have funding secured. It'll be a mix of funding, $1 million of American Rescue Plan Act funding that has been awarded to Feeding Wisconsin through Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection, and another $200,000 from the same grant that we received for last year's pilot from Feeding America National. We have some of the logistics to work out with this, but we have anticipated that this budget will allow us to distribute between 1,300 and 1,400 boxes at each distribution, likely 1 to 2 times per month, to an expanded number of tribal communities. So like I said before, we started last year with a core of 3 tribal distribution sites. We were able to move to distributing to 7 in partnership with 7 tribal nations by the end of the season last year. And as we've heard, some excitement and eagerness to have others join, we are anticipating expanding the program to serve additional tribal communities in the coming year. This funding also allows for more flexibility in what we're able to purchase in the way of food products. So not only fresh and frozen proteins and produce, but we can also potentially source other value-added products, non-perishable items, and we'll get into some ideas that the tribal elders have shared with us that they'd like to see in these boxes in a few minutes. We're anticipating spreading these distributions out over 16 distributions, probably to our core partners, tribal partners, between May and early December, trying to run alongside the Wisconsin growing season. And like I mentioned, there may be some flexibilities where some of the new tribal distribution partners coming on this year may begin by receiving distributions once a month, while we may stay to the core bi-weekly distributions for the partners that were involved last year. So this could look a little different partner by partner, but what that means for you all from a producer end is that there's flexibility in offering product for sales for this program that maybe you might only have enough product to support a monthly sale, and that would work fine. We are hoping that for some of the products, it would be able to come in the quantities of 1,300 to 1,400 units of any item to be able to be included in all of our boxes. But we also want to encourage smaller producers to learn more about the program, and potentially we can kind of do some aggregation on our end to pull in some regional product. Maybe there's only 400 units of blueberries available from some producer, and we certainly not want to pass that up. So I think we'll be able to do some piecemeal purchases as well. So our goal would be, again, for some of those the core items to shoot for the 1,300 to 1,400 to serve all boxes. But like I said, there's flexibility in how we can make this work in the year ahead. Again, we will be prioritizing product sourced from native growers and local growers as well, local producers. So that's why we're calling you all together today to hopefully have an expanded opportunity for us all to get nutritious and traditional products into these boxes.
So building on what Steph had said, I'm Dan Cornelius with Intertribal Ag Council, and I'm a member of Oneida Nation. Looking at the responses, the input from last year, and then looking at how that input can help to impact how this effort moves forward this year, I think the biggest message that we got was just an an appreciation from a lot of the survey participants that they really enjoyed. They enjoyed receiving the boxes. They liked a lot of what was in there, and then the responses were we got some very good feedback on what people would like to see more of. One of the limitations on the first year is that funding needed to go toward perishable items. We were able to raise some additional funds for wild rice and maple syrup. Actually, Marlon, who is pictured here, who runs Oneida's Food Pantry, had a grant that was able to buy the maple syrup. This year, we're going to have more flexibility on. We're not going to be as limited to the perishable items. So I know one of the big things we're already talking with one of the producers about is smoked fish. But overall, the feedback was people liked the meat. They'd like to see more of that meat. Again, a little bit more of the non-perishables, and then looking for other ideas of nuts and mushrooms. I think we'd like to try to get more berries and fruit if possible, but I think one of the important things about this effort is, as Gary had touched on at the beginning, is we really want to be putting boxes out with items that that people are going to appreciate and use. Maybe have some stuff in there that's a little bit new and unique, and try to give some ideas on how to use it. But we want people to be getting boxes and foods that they know they appreciate, and they're going to use for both themselves and sharing with their families. April, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm April Yancer. I'm with the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, and I run the Farm to School and Institution program. I feel honored to be able to be part of this Tribal Elder Box program and to partner to support producers and supply chain partners to connect to this. This truly is a local food system development, economic development opportunity, and has been approached so well with healthy communities, healthy farmers, healthy food, and healthy connections between people and their food. So I see a lot of opportunity here, and there's a lot of work, as we all know on this call, in connecting small scale producers to institutional scale purchasing. So that's where I can jump in and support these connections. So if you're interested in selling to this program, please reach out to me, and I can assist with some technical assistance and connecting you to resources that might be useful to move in that direction. I can help you assess if this program is a good fit for your business. And I can also provide you with some more information on other local food programs that are developing. There's a lot of funding and policy changes that are supporting local food supply chains, and putting a lot, it's a big ask on our local farmers. And so whatever I can do to help make those connections, I'm here to participate in whatever way it might develop. Of course, small scale producers are going to need to connect to other producers, aggregators, distributors, and I hope that I can play a role in getting you in contact with the people that you need to be in contact with. I can help you find information on food safety and other resources to support the growth of your business. And I would love to hear from you on what your needs might be as a producer to sell into a program like this, or some of the other opportunities that we'll be developing in the next few months. And then I can help you plan your next steps to connect. So my contact information is here. Email is best, so please feel free to reach out to me for any technical assistance or resource support.
So in order to become a vendor, we do have a few things that we ask. One is to take a look at and sign the producer memorandum of understanding. So what that will entail is it'll show you all the different components of the program, what the expectations are from you as a vendor, and what as a purchaser, how we'll interact with each other. So there's a lot of really great information in there, and it'll clearly show, how we interact with each other and how we move forward. The other component of this is the completing the seasonal availability form. Now, this is a really easy form. It's just a spreadsheet with a few columns that show, if you can let us know what the products are that you grow, how you want to sell it, if it's by the bunch, if it's by the pound, if it's by the case, what the price per unit would be. Again, if that's price per bunch, price per pound, price per case, whatever the case may be. And then what the seasonality looks like for you. So if you're growing lettuces and your growing season for your farm is between May and June, and again later in the season from October to November, just let us know that. And so what this gives us an idea is when we look at all the different vendors that we work with, it gives us an understanding of what the landscape is for who's growing what. And it gives us some decision making that we can go into for during the season. So if we can stagger product coming in from different growers at different times, or if we know that a certain grower is growing a specific vegetable or fruit, and we can get an understanding of what that looks like in the beginning of the season, it gets to be a lot easier during the growing season to have those discussions and understand what it is we're looking for. I will make a note now about, I know there's going to be a lot of questions about, well, what kind of pricing should we put in here, or what kind of format do you want? So on the format side of things, think about it as we're doing 1,300 or 1,600 boxes. So we need to be able to fulfill each of those boxes with one package or one bundle or one amount for each of those boxes. And we don't want any of those boxes to go without for that particular distribution. So we can really work with you on that, what that might look like on a case-by-case basis. From the pricing side of things, we can be flexible. Like we're looking at this from a full budgetary perspective on each week's boxes. And so we have some flexibility. So as a general rule of thumb, we ask that you price your products with what a fair market value would be for a wholesale buyer. And within that, we can have some discussions around it. At the end of the day, we're not looking for discounts. We're not looking for you to undercut your profitability. We really want this to be something that is a win for you as growers, and it gets us really great product that we can distribute into the communities that we're serving. I'll pause there for the next one.
Thank you, Jeff. I think you covered pricing really nicely. So this slide is just to touch on how this works. While this is an institutional scale program, the procurement is still relationship based, and developing food systems is relationship based, and we're all working together to create healthy communities and healthy farms and make this all happen. So there are a few things in terms of logistics that we are still learning. We did a 1-year pilot, and now we're taking on a 2nd year with some expansion. And so we're still figuring out what those logistics will be, who the partners are, where drop points are, how food is going to get from one point to another, with a commitment to small scale Indigenous producers and local food producers being able to be part of this partnership. So a few details that just to cover some general pieces of working together is that the boxes will be distributed from May to November. I don't think the exact dates are set on that yet, but more information will be to come. As Jeff said, vendors initiate price setting for wholesale transactions. This isn't a program that requires contract bids or has set pricing for the program. It is a relationship-based procurement, and it's important that it works for everybody. Forecasting availability for the season will help support not only the needs from Jeff's end, but also helping you forecast what your season looks like and how this fits into your bigger operation. And then also a common question I've been receiving is about how you submit your availability, and availability forms are to be submitted 1 week prior to the purchase order. And that's where we're at right now. That may change as we have conversations and solidify some logistics, but those are a few details on how we can work together.
Now, those were the pieces of information that we would like to share with you. And now we are very open to any questions or thoughts that you all might have for us. You can go ahead and use the chat, or please do unmute yourself and jump right in.
Do you mind if I jump in?
Please do.
Okay. So I just had a question. It seems like, so we are just giving our availability right before the purchase is made. I'm wondering if there's like, because like I could grow 5,000 pounds of carrots, but I'm not going to grow those unless I know that you're going to buy them. So is there like any contract growing that we would know that you're going to purchase from us before we plant?
That's a great question. So that's part of what we're doing on the front end here is try to get an understanding of what everybody can do or does well. Once we kind of can aggregate all that, we can start to make some commitments to the growers. I wouldn't be able to do that necessarily like today and say, yes, let's go ahead. But if we can continue to communicate over the next weeks, and once we have an understanding of that, once we make the commitment, we can follow through on that commitment. So, you know, I definitely wouldn't want to say, go ahead and do it and then back out. Like, that's not how we would operate. We have the funding for this. And additionally, we have some other programs that, you know, we can work together on if the opportunity is right. So I know that doesn't answer your question exactly directly, but that is something that we can entertain. It's just, we have to get a lay of the land of all the growers on the front end, and then try to start to tease out some decision making as we go through the product list. Does that help? I mean, I know it's not a perfect answer, but it's you know, it kind of gets us closer to where we're at, need to be.
Yeah, I just wanted to tag on to that. As Jeff mentioned, there are other programs in place and other funding opportunities available. So there are a lot of projects that are going to support local food system development and local small scale producers supplying for food security efforts in schools and some other things. So we're mindful of the needs of a producer to have some commitment to grow their business in that direction. And we do see a lot of opportunities. So the more information we can receive on what you have to offer in product and what the needs of your business are, and then we can look at that in the context of not only this program, but many programs on how we can partner with local producers.
And I would just say one more quick thing to that is, I think back to this slide, while the availability form a week in advance of a purchase order is going to be important once we're in the season, this kind of forecasting of availability of seasonal products in advance around this time of year is going to be most helpful. So starting the conversations with April, letting her know the products that you could potentially have available. Stacy, as you said, carrots, if you knew, sharing that timeline for when you need to know by, then we'll be compiling all of those possible seasonal purchases, and then go back to the producers and let you all know that this is what we would, you know, appreciate having if you can produce this for us.
And I want to give you a real world example of how this worked on the last round. So we had a few growers who had they grew lettuce specifically for us. And so, we made the arrangement maybe 2 months before the first harvest would happen. And we said, we will buy, 900 units of lettuce from you for as many weeks as you have them. And, from the first one. And so we had one who said, okay, we can do it for 3 weeks or 3 distributions. And we were able to be flexible because at one point they had to push their harvest back by a week. So we had to sort of adjust the date. But because we had a few different farmers that we could work with, we were able to accommodate that while still meeting the agreement that we had set up in place on the front end. So this can be a little bit fluid in terms of timing, but once we sort of agree how we're going to operate with each other, we can stand by that commitment and make it happen.
Yes, and we had a question from, I see Wayne in the chat, and he asked if this is only organic. And we have not necessarily said things have to be certified organic. As we start growing, our elders, and those are the clients, those are those end customers, they ask for foods that are in their mind are grown without Roundup or certain types of pesticides. So they talk about those types of things, and we are not asking that somebody be certified. The idea is to grow this in an environmentally friendly, sustainable, organic-like method. And we know sometimes that the manpower in this and the costing may be different. So we understand that coming in. And the whole idea of us purchasing from you all as that type of a grower is we want to make sure you stick around. We want to make sure that you continue to stay in existence, because we need, this region needs your type of food production. So we want to build those relationships with that type of grower, because there are other types of funding that, just because there's so much complexity and because we are looking at building that infrastructure in a lot of the other areas away from actually growing, so we can support and really look at increasing what our demand is. So we need to have those relationships with you all. So we're not going to be asking for organic certification so much. One of the things that we had looked in buying from individuals or from producers is we had created a waterfall, and we said, let's first try to buy from tribal producers. Then let's look at local producers. Then we asked Jeff where we have certain foods that we know we are not, the local and tribal cannot provide enough product for us. Then we've asked Jeff, can with your connections and your relationship and your systems, can you find those for us? But we're trying to sustain and make a resilient food system. And we don't have necessarily, and Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have necessarily a set mileage or what we consider local, because we had purchased, for instance, some of the maple syrup, and we had, the maple syrup from outside of the state, right? From Minnesota.
Yep, this program does not have a strict definition of what is local. we did for the first pilot purchase from Minnesota and Michigan producers. So I think we have an interest in maintaining regionality. We don't want to be trucking product across the country for this. We are intending this to go to local producers, but regionally is how we're seeing that. Jeff, there's a couple other questions I'm wondering if you might be able to field. The next one, are there any expectations for washing produce beyond field washing?
That's a good question. So I would answer that we want the product to be clean and presentable and safe for the consumers. We understand that there may be some additional washing that needs to happen at the, once it gets to the recipients, but I wouldn't want to see onions with excess dirt on them, for instance. But and these will be items that are commingled with other items in the box. So just keeping in mind that we don't necessarily have a set standard for this program, but the expectation is that it would be clean and free of excess debris. And that I understand that has some level of interpretation to it, but that's kind of what we can go with. We also, I'm sure we'll get a question about this, or that it's on people's minds. We do not require that the producers are GAP certified. It certainly doesn't hurt if that were the case, but we do not require specific certifications like certified organic or GAP certification. Traceability is another good question. So we don't necessarily have specific stipulations with that. We've been fortunate to work with specific growers and aggregators where it hasn't been an issue. We are able to trace the product via the paperwork that we receive directly to the producers if it's going through an aggregator. And that is something that we would want to maintain, that traceability throughout. But we don't have a specific form or method of recording that set up at the front end.
If I could build on that, Jeff, part of what these efforts are, one of our ultimate long-term objectives is establishing an intertribal cooperative here within the region. And so those type of questions, building that type of capacity is something that is gradually coming together as these efforts continue to evolve and expand.
There are labeling requirements listed in the MOU. So we do have some basic labeling requirements.
And we got a question from Daisy of, does the meat have to be USDA processed? I think as long as Jeff and Steph, please feel free to step in, but I think as long as it's staying within Wisconsin, I don't think at this point that that would be a requirement, but we may need to just double check to be sure on that.
No, that's accurate. So I would say that following the guidelines for, at a minimum, the state requirements, so that it would be processed within a state, at a minimum, a state approved facility, and have a state stamp on it. USDA would be fine, but it's not necessary as long as there's the state bug at a minimum. The product does need to, I will mention that any of the proteins that we bring in do need to be frozen throughout the food chain. We would not be able to accept and store and distribute product that is still fresh. It would need to be frozen by the time it got to us at the warehouses.
If I could jump in on that with another question on chickens. So if we are under the produce for the state to not have to run through a state certified processor, would that still be all right? Or would you have to move to a state certified processor for chickens?
I would say we still need to go through a state processor for the chickens. If you had a specific circumstances that you want to go through, we could look at what that looks like. But I think I would need to see what you're looking at specifically, to be honest.
Okay. The other question I had is related to time frame of this program. Is it a year-to-year type program, or is there, you know, multiple year commitment if a producer were to scale up? Currently, I sell primarily direct to consumer. I'd have the ability to scale up to provide items for this program, but I'm just interested if it's a year-to-year type deal or if there's a long-term commitment.
I'll take that one. Others, please feel free to jump in. This year, this is a year-to-year program. There's funding for this next year. However, we are working on securing longer-term funding for. I know we've had a couple of tribes that we're on. I'm working right now with USDA on outreach for a local food purchase assistance program. That's a two-year source of funding that's available to state and tribal governments. So we are, started at as the numbers showed, started at 428,000 last year, 1.2 million this year, trying to keep that funding coming in and have that longer term certainty, because I think we all recognize it just takes time to plan, and and having a longer time frame of that guaranteed market. And that's a lot of what we're trying to do for our tribal producers and other local producers.
Okay. Last question I had, as far as, is there like a minimum size that you guys will be looking to buy? So I currently raise 300 meat birds a year, sell most of them right direct to consumer and eat a fair portion of them myself. But is there be like a minimum scale you'd be looking to for buying meat birds or something of that nature?
I wouldn't say that there's a minimum or a maximum per se. I think the biggest concern that or consideration that I would have is that there's consistency, so that at the point of distribution, you don't have some people who are getting considerably larger birds than others or something like that. We want it to be fair and equitable for the recipients. So if there's some degree of consistency that we can expect from it, that would be probably the biggest thing that we would be looking for on with the meat packages. So for the first round, especially, we didn't buy in whole birds. Everything that we bought in was in pre-cut packaging. So in that way, we could really control the sizing to a certain extent. So we could get in roughly, 1 to 1.5 pound breasts or pieces. If we were doing lamb or buffalo, we could do 1 pound chubs of those. So like, it was fairly simple to kind of get to that consistency. If we're looking at whole birds, which I think are on the table, again, we just want to have some degree of understanding of what the variance would be between the birds themselves.
Okay. Thank you for your time, and thanks for the invite.
Thank you so much.
I see another question in the chat that we hadn't yet gotten to. Where do we deliver and what day of the week? So this has yet to be determined in its entirety for the coming year. I will share what we did last year. So last year we worked with the Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative to centralize all deliveries from the producer to the repack operation. We use volunteers to repack into household portion boxes. So that was a delivery to Wapaka. This coming year, we're considering that option. Once again, we're also considering potentially the opportunity to do some decentralized packing as well. So to have products reach additional regional repacks, maybe making it a little easier on producers getting that food to a repack location, and also maybe closer to additional tribal partners. So we don't have that worked out yet. Last year, we did all of the repacking on every other Wednesday. So we needed the delivery to happen at the front end of the week, so Monday or Tuesday, prior to the repack on a Wednesday. I think that worked out pretty well. I'm sure we could, consider how that might look different in the coming year, but I think a midweek repack allowed for the least kind of storage and handling timeline to get that out to consumers by the end of the week. I see that Sarah Lloyd, I believe, is on here. Sarah, do you want to jump in and say hello from Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Hi, everybody. So Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative has a warehouse just outside of Wapaka, west of Wapaka, and we also have trucks. So as Stephanie said, we were able to host the volunteer team from Feeding Wisconsin that came in and did the pack. And we also were able to, with support from the grant funds, do some of the transport of like picking up and bringing to the warehouse so that it could then be distributed. And so we can talk through, we have regular routes of trucks, both small trucks and semis. So that's, we're in on the conversations about how to best structure this. And if that makes sense, again, to use our facility as a staging and aggregation area. And we're quite happy to be part of the collaboration.
Wanted to jump in here too, in terms of producers getting product from their farms to Wapaka. There are several options of working through an aggregator. There's some backhauling from different communities, and that's something when we talk, we can look at who else is in your area, how can product shipments be collaborated, or how can we connect you to other supply chain partners that can help get your product from your farm to the Wisconsin Food Hub.
Any additional questions for now? As we're waiting to see if any come in through the chat, or please feel free to unmute yourself. I'm going to pop back. I had a few other questions in the chat. I'm going to pop back to the slide on next steps. So if you are interested in producing for the program, please do, first step would be reaching out to April to discuss the possible products that you'd be able to grow, and ways of connecting, both with logistics and just setting up a schedule for purchase. And also, like we mentioned, like Jeff mentioned earlier, we will be updating a producer MOU, and we have a seasonal availability form for you to access that will support a deeper understanding of some of our requirements, and a tool to help to document what product you might have available in advance of a purchase. So we will make sure that we get all of those materials out to all those who have registered. We'll also put those on our Feeding Wisconsin web page, on our Tribal Food Security web page. And then I'll go to the last slide. Feel free again to ask any additional questions you might have, but I'll head over to the last slide where we have contact information for all of the folks who have been speaking today from our partnership.
This is Amy. A few individuals have asked in the chat if the recording will be made available as well as the forms. And so just letting everyone know, we can definitely circulate that after our conversation today.
And Steph, will those forms all be available on the project website?
Yep.
At Feeding Wisconsin?
Yep, I'll get them posted once again. We took them down at the end of the last season, but I'll get them up there shortly.
So
Without
please,
seeing any additional questions, I also just, sorry, Gary, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, so please step forward and take a look at the forms and ask those questions. This is one venue that we are looking for. And obviously, if only 41% of our produce had gone through tribal vendors, we can see that need for, number one, an increase in tribal vendors, but also we have need for other like-minded growers to also get into this system and for other initiatives that we are taking to really grow a resilient, localized food system. And we want you in there.
Yes, thank you all for your interest in attending this info session, and please do follow up with any questions or thoughts that you might have.
Great, thank you all. And we hope next year, we are doing a recap of all of our producers and hearing what you had to say, and you all are on there. Thank you so much, everybody. Maxwell, Lennon, stay safe and please get in touch with us.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Yes, thank you, everybody.